Welcome to Tidbit Talkin. Have some ideas about a fictional thing, each one featuring different levels of seriousness. Spoilers, here we go. Wednesday, Ever After. Barry most likely isn't just having a nightmare about one Season 2 enemy taking out his current team. Chances are, the negative Speed Force is making him witness every villain annihilating all of his allies each time he falls asleep, even if it's just nodding off for a few moments. Having a super speedy subconscious sure opens up opportunities for some awful hoopla, doesn't it? Joe's determination to get Cecile properly trained almost definitely revolves around concerns about her accidentally breaking his precious jazz collection. Cat Grant's goal of buying Central City Citizen Media probably has something to do with wanting to get exclusive interviews with just about every other League member like she already has on the Supergirl front. She'd do this mostly to one-up her former workplace, the Daily Planet, as it really showed them if they only ever talked about that one dude while she was the sole source for everything else. These nap-induced torture visions focused upon Stabby McArmorface must have been what kicked off Mr. Allen's obsession with ensuring a 100% predetermined future, as just about everything revolving around said fellow was about that kind of thing. Except their roles are sort of reversed now, since that baddie was the one who was trying to only let one path happen before, but also not really, as it was also him back then too. Time travel always sucks. What's most likely actually causing this event loop isn't loose particles from that malfunctioning mini-accelerator. Rather, a certain awfulness-fueled mobility-enhancing power field is sending him back to the day's beginning each time he fails, because it wants to kill the dude in a very specific own-hands-involving sort of way later on. Nobody would ever notice this because all that particular energy in the episode-shown accident covered up traces of every other identifiable thingy. Iris started thinking about buying the Coast City Gazette after her husband's despair run because that's where he grabbed pizza from during what was just brought up. There isn't any radiation left over from the explosion getting phased because Speed Force or whatnot got rid of it. Horton's training is almost exclusively focused upon stuff exiting her hands just in case she unintentionally telekinetically tosses a daughter or grand one while holding them. Hear no evil. Mark couldn't improve/repair the chamber by himself anymore because those places he stole its parts from earlier have all upped their ice attack-related security measures as a result of his aforementioned absconding actions. The Sonic cuff was misplaced because Caitlin moved everything in her lab while panicking trying to save Frost and never got a chance at reorganizing since she was far too depressed afterwards. New Snow Lady can recognize that Hartley's only doing junk for another person's sake because such behavior is literally the only kind she's witnessed in her life thus far. Allegra chose the Tundra Queen over Miss Medic not just because she hung out with that first one more. It's also because as a prison juvie kid, she's gotten used to patching herself up and doesn't think other folks are all that important in the process. Experience reporter gal decided upon Miss Coolness because she's worried about Vaughn attacking her and wants some extra protection. She just doesn't bring this up to her husband because it'd make him get extra worried again like during that recent time loop chaos. Speaking of that guy, he's too worried about accidentally ending a life like he was purposely trying to do with Eobard via electrocution last time to attempt perfecting lightning lobbing levels that equal taser shocks. In other words, guy can't knock anybody out with sparks because he's too scared about practice becoming fatal for the volunteer. Thus much sucking at this skill ensues. Fiddler's plan seems to be as follows. Cause Pied Piper's arrhythmia and then safely steal his gauntlets without getting pursued because using scream abilities in such a state would likely cause heart explosion-related malarkey. Red Death doesn't do much herself at first because she's busy figuring out how one can survive in doppelganger proximity with new multiversal rules in place. Plus, performing suit maintenance on top of all that must have kept her far too busy for direct fighting action. Rogues of War. Corbin Taft creating temporal scanning tech could very well be the initial step in an event series which ends with time ships being first developed. Also, this premiere stage may simply be related to studying how normal spacecraft junk might deal with traveling at near-light speeds. Barry wouldn't consider grabbing Mick for this mission because he's somebody else who knows all that secret identity and whatnot, similar to Hartley. However, unlike that guy, he probably won't be so careful with keeping it secret around everybody. Plus, Jocko's powers might screw up his weapon. Related, the rather intelligent Goldface doesn't quickly deduce a certain Super Swift Sir's legal name whatever because he's so focused on sensing whether or not there's any of his namesake metal around that said guy's precious junk stuffed costume actually makes it seem like somebody else entirely is stumbling about. Also, the guy's love of literature might have led him to construct a way too complex narrative in his head, preventing accurate and reasonable guess action from ever occurring. The lack of metadamplers throughout this entire facility could very well have to do with some folks' abilities being all that's saving them from typically terminal illness crap. Not even the most secret and amoral of organizations wants to deal with random dropping downs every single day, if only for practical purposes revolving around lawsuit avoiding. The Scarlet Reaper's negative energy must be extra effective during the scene because Ultra Cop Jogger's still feeling kinda funny after just leaving that nullifying field. Mask of the Red Death, Part 1. Bivolo likely provides a double service for Miss Multiversal Maniac over here. That is, he can subdue their foes with his ability while also increasing her own bad emotion-rooted strength. Barry does in fact see the worst in his allies, but in a good way. It's simply part of his process for forgiving people and figuring out the best way to move forward. She's basically just using a really evil way to say, you understand why people are upset. Getting chained up in addition to typical taming tech on top of Red Death's natural energy sapping must all be part of preventing the dude from simply overpowering one imprisoning piece like he did during Season 4's premiere. Anyway, Lady Lethal legwork likely was compelled by the negative speed force to build her quickness-granting suit the same way it made Thawne invent his block. Ryan Wayne didn't just get kicked out of the natural hastiness deal because of her fake energy-filled status. Its evil counterpart also probably wanted her present to distract everybody from Eddie getting rebuilt. The Red Death suit being self-propelling and completely detachable might have came about after she failed at replicating Flash Ring shrinking tech and settled for a meh close enough sort of deal. Cecile can predict where sour supernatural swooshing storm stuff shows up because it's created by a literally emotionally charged origin point. Mask of the Red Death Part 2. The other half of this trap is simply Mr. Grand Protagonist just going into work. Over time, more Sentinels start getting generated rather easily because both her and Grodd are becoming exponentially pissier. In an incredible coincidence, the other gorillas losing their intelligence must have occurred a little bit after everything got recreated by Crisis Resolution from an entirely separate event. Perhaps mirror copy malarkey resulted in a body-snatched person running an experiment that brain-fried them. There's some simple deadly cycle crap going on here with regards to the aforementioned evil armor production increases. Higher power makes her angrier, which causes smaller crimes to get noticed, which makes a greater headcount seem necessary. The extra soldiers can then observe all that much easier together and keep things going indefinitely. Sir Supremely Smart Simeon handles Speed Force borrowing quite easily because his already enhanced brain figured out much about it during his mind meld with Mr. Allen some years ago. Also, the remaining juice didn't spread to other body bits because it instinctively got held back out of fear for how uncontrollable extreme big monkey metabolism could wind up getting. Iris got pregnant a tad earlier than anticipated because force-clashing shenanigans shifted around her husband's fertility-related swiftness more than a little bit. The good, the bad, and the lucky. Becky surviving after that reality-changing event must have been because her powers, and those of any similarly strengthened doppelgangers, reacted to said thing's all-time reaching aspect by making continued survival odds extra pumped up in their favor. Also, an unfortunate side effect of all this could very well be why no Earths can reach each other anymore, as people going kaboom en masse seems pretty ultimate bad luckish. These hired thugs aren't so eager to take lives because it costs extra and they don't believe their current employers will provide the cash. This dummy tests for most meta abilities by seeing how it's damaged. In at least one exception to this, technopathy gets checked for by seeing if the attached scanners mess up in a very specific way. Mr. Lame Blaine thought he could figure out how to teach her about frost power utilizing because his gauntlets were developed by copying the aforementioned skill set. Keon can always focus because feeling connected to literally everything makes nothing stand out enough to reach true distraction-causing levels. That awakening kiss was actually her accidentally rerouting a soul's natural afterlife passage by attempting what she believed to be CPR. Newest chill lady made a snowstorm occur indoors by manipulating the condensation on those normal glass viewing dealies unintentionally while thinking about her earlier metaphor attempt regarding erasing things and leaving only good behind. Basically, she really wanted to clean those windows while also wondering about the better events air-placed water can cause, and winterness ensued. Recent criminal boss guy confesses anyway despite that misfortune-deflecting Ruby action going on because him getting arrested actually isn't the worst thing which could happen given how so much law-breaking can easily result in perishing or whatever. Wildest Dreams. Nia's jitter screaming being met with an absurdly alternate response than what such actions in real life would produce would be because companies must train folks to deal with such stuff quite differently in a superhero-filled world. Specifically, they'd be highly concerned about making sure employees knew how to ascertain whether or not individuals were reacting to something currently happening in front of them, or merely a previously considered impossible news story. Chill Blah's subconscious also hates shirts because he can't sleep properly while wearing them. Madam West Allen is her role model and not Kara because she thinks the latter uses superpowers to cheat. She'd never admit it though, not even to herself. Blah blah blah, caring about your friend's feelings. Iris probably regularly dreams about different versions of herself throughout the multiverse as a side effect of her and that hubby's whole lightning rod connection deal. Police Captain East opposing Wrench wouldn't keep many Barry photos in her office as a way of trying to avoid workplace favoritism. Supergirl, Martian Manhunter, and Brainiac 5 all leave their new home planet to help with cosmic problems more often post-crisis because they now live in a world where Superman has much more help than before. The Flash's creation almost definitely came about much later in coffee shop manager reality because Thawne would have a much harder time manipulating things with his greatest hero foe in such an awkwardly public job. Something more gossips with phones in coffee shops than police stations. There is also typically much less forensic chemicals sitting around there. That shut-eye stuffed terror where all those employees gossip about his other crime-fighting job must be based in a world where Mr. Allen actually confessed about his masked activities during DeVoe Spark trial stuff. Allegra doesn't actually know people who can get her recipes. She's merely just using her wavelength vision to determine how things can be cooked perfectly. The statement's just uttered to make her look like a cool journalist professional lady instead of a mundane power-utilizing nerd woman. Accidental dinner freezing coming about must have something to do with not feeling right about eating until that one dude comes back and her adoptive team family seems complete again. Partners in Time. Crime Time last got tripped up by archaic property protection because she would have been only prepared for the modern defense stuff found in the Flash Museum's outer, more public layers. Dawn made his vault big enough to hold tons of stuff because he designed it as a full living space just in case an emergency situation arose where there wasn't anywhere else safe for hiding out from hero scrap during Season 1. Chances are the team's general populace told lie about their Speed Lab's purpose is something like, it's where we examine traffic cam and security footage of various species to determine how their abilities affect everyday places. Anyway, funding for this tribute building probably came about by an Allen ally spouting some line about how it was in Harrison Wells' will to convert his old lab into something honoring the only good what's-it caused by a certain particle accelerator hiccup. Someone in the far future must have written a Star Trek series focused upon their DC world's real heroes' descendants traveling to various planets so they can protect other civilizations after Earth became reasonably safe. Hence Barry's nifty outfit. That Geiger counter doesn't work right because crazy temporal particle and whatnot is obstructing what it's trying to read. Everything gets replaced by objects instead of other life forms because this error dimension can handle such things more consistent state quite a bit better than fleshy, metabolic fueled what have you. Somewhat related, those who get directly blasted by Lady Chronos wind up much smaller because concussive crap causes a density sort of problem for this unstable reality. Basically something along the lines of, thing got pushed in a little, must mean it would have eventually been crushed into a cube. Her permanently borrow comment must have meant she would have returned it just before that whole inevitable life end thingy came around. Endings are a pain, but all of you are fantastic. See ya.